Mike Lunny. I'm excited to see our friend Jett with us again.
Yeah,
Hey,
Jett's here. It's always a good day when I get to see Mr. Jett.
I think Mr. Jett has. Do they call you that? Anybody, Mr.
I don't
Jett?
know. I just.
this is going to seem like a name drop to some people, but Willie Owens calls me Mr. Jett. Only
Oh,
person
wow.
that does that. I know.
Let's pick that name back up.
Yeah, yeah.
That's funny. Well, good for you, Mr. Jett.
Yeah.
I would expect in public schools in our part of the world, a lot of time you just get Mr.
Yeah, you do. I get Mr. Lowrance or Mr. Lord of the Ants has come up recently.
Lord of the Ants.
Yeah, just sixth graders will come up with all kinds of
They
stuff.
are creative folks, are they not?
Oh, they are. Yeah.
Well, when
Cool.
he student taught for me, well, I had to get onto my band because they kept calling the student teachers student teacher people. Instead of learning them, they say, "Hey, student teacher person." I said, "Quit calling him student teacher person. He does.
They have a name.
It keeps us in our place.
Yeah.
It was fine. Yeah. Mike,
Yeah, go for
before
it.
we go on,
Go for it.
I have a question
It's
from
our podcast.
We can do what we
whatever
want.
Say
want.
we do
Okay.
what we want.
It would help frame the whole thing we're talking about, but it's okay. So
Yeah.
anyway, so I have a question from a former student teacher who's a first year teacher,
Got it.
and it is Ask Mike, not Ask Jett. And so his question is, what? I'm going to read it.
Okay.
Nope, it's here. There we go. JC Campbell's question to you is, what would be some good steps for fostering a healthy culture?
I say all the things we just talked about. No, not to put it in a nutshell, but
Yeah.
we have to make sure that our rehearsals end up being a safe place. First of all, physically, that all the kids feel physically that they're safe inside your rehearsal.
Mhm.
And then emotionally, they're safe inside your rehearsal. It's a safe place to make a mistake. They know if they make a mistake, that's not the end of the world. The best way to model that is as a director, when you make a mistake, another warning to some directors, quit trying to hide the fact you made a mistake because the kids know. They sniff that out quicker than anything,
Yeah.
So I would say that'd be the first thing is just be honest with the kids. When you mess up, just say, "Oh man, I just messed up. I kept saying measure 17, and then I got mad at you, got frustrated because you were starting in the wrong place, even though you were starting at 17."
That happens so often.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
and just admit it. Say, I said the wrong number. I apologize. That one's on me, and the kids will feel safer. But to build that culture, it's just a daily thing, and it's less about teaching the music as it is about you have to teach the kids, the students, to be good citizens.
Yeah, exactly right.
And the problem is with some directors are not good citizens.
If
They're not.
they're not, yeah.
They're not. And they have good bands, by the way, but they're not developing the culture within their band. And we could, when these microphones are off, we can talk more about these individuals, but that they do not develop a culture. They develop a good band for their resume. So,
Exactly. That's what can this band do for me? Not what can
Yes.
I do for my students to help them be successful? What do my students need from me?
Amen, Deacon Jett.
Yep.
Okay. Now,
So I asked that question, or I asked that because I want to continue framing this. This is the stuff we're talking about. People always ask that. My culture's not very good. How do I develop my
Yeah.
culture? It's through these things. It's these little bitty micro decisions, these good decisions that stack up over time, these little interactions that stack up over time. Mike brings up this book all the time, Atomic Habits. It's just these little big things that you stack until all of a sudden you're like, it's like magic. It's like, wow, everybody's
Yeah.
happy. And not all the time. We all have bad days, but most of the time it's like, I'm happy to be at work. My kids are happy to be in my class. I'm so happy to see my kids genuinely happy, not faking it. And those things just, again, it's through all this stuff.
Yeah, and I want to give you just one little tiny example, and I've seen this handled both ways. A kid comes up, and it's the first time they've lost their music. Okay, this isn't an habitual thing. They come up and say, "I can't find my folder." So I see the director goes, "Well," they'll say multiple things. "Oh, I guess we need to look on eBay. Someone must have stolen it. And they're gonna, you can get on eBay and you can buy your music back." Or this seems to be a you problem. If you just have your stuff together, we'd be able to have rehearsal. Or perhaps you could just look at the kid and go, "Man, you've never lost your music before." Said, "Man, I understand. So we all make mistakes. Can you just read off your neighbor's music today and kind of look around the band hall after band, or even right now, if you want to, you can go around the band hall and look. If you don't find it, I'll copy off some more, and then leave it with the idea that, but if this happens day after day after day after day, said, we might have to have a consequence for this. Said, but man, I understand.
Yep. And most of the time, you don't have to even have that part of the conversation. You just monitor it yourself and go, actually, this person only left it out once or twice, and it was a long time in between, so it's not a big deal. That's just an accident. But yeah, if you do notice them leaving it out, yeah, like you say,
Yeah.
just if you notice things that look like they're habitual, then address them.
But I'm
Yeah,
going to say this too. I don't think most people would address that way. They usually come up to the director and say, "Someone stole my music," as opposed to,
but you got to look through that. That's just how
I
kids
understand
are.
it, but
Yeah,
that's the point I'm
say,
trying
hey,
to
let's
make.
go. I'm very simple about that stuff now. I go, probably not. Let's just go look for it, and
Right.
let's look in all the slots around where your music goes. Let's look over where your case is. I don't even make a big deal when people leave their notebooks out anymore. I used to be that person, that director from Whiplash, who has that binder. If I find one more of these folders,
you give it back to him with the discipline slip.
Oh man, I used to do that, but now most of the time somebody leaves something out, and it's not very often. I just put it up, and it's done, and it doesn't happen again typically, And if it does, it's like, hey, I just want you to know I've put this up for you the past 4 days, and that's usually enough. They're
But
like,
I got to tell
oh,
you honestly, there's an element of hypocrisy to doing that any other way, because I can't tell you how many of my things I leave laying around and then
right.
go, "Where's my favorite pen? Who has my favorite pen?" Well, it's in the shirt that I had last night. But I'm going to throw two things out real quick. We're talking about culture. This is kind of my thought back towards that. First of all, does it make sense for me to say, quit trying to establish dominance through absolutes? If you create absolutes, you are setting yourself up to fail and setting them up to always be wrong.
Well, I'm sorry, Jett. I'm going to stop you at established dominance.
Boom.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm a first year
I'm with you.
teacher. I'm a new teacher.
But
I've got to show these kids that I'm in charge of this.
You're never going to establish dominance.
No way.
What are you going to do? Pee on their stand?
But if you,
you're not going to establish dominance. You're going to have to work with them. So
what I'm saying by saying that is, come to grips with the fact that it's not about who's the most dominant.
They're always.
What can I do? Because it's what Jett said. What can I do? What do they need from me to be successful?
Have you ever tried to
need me to beat my chest?
No. If you ever tried to argue with a middle schooler, nobody wins. Nobody.
Yeah.
They think they win, but nobody wins, and so then they think they win. They think I got it.
And my example was, it was funny. I was doing a summer band with a program, and my job was to work the first trumpets. So I had them for 2.5 hours a day. And so I was laughing with them because it became sort of a battle. And I told them, I said, what am I going to have to do? Like scream a double C and pee on your stands? and it was all boys. They just kind of laughed and they go, all right, Mr. Lunny, we give up. So sometimes you have to be crude with them, especially when it's high school boys.
Yeah. And see, you should also utilize your great personality. Yeah. I would never say that. That's not in my wheelhouse, but
they're used to me. They're used to me. Yeah. I taught those same kids for like 6 years in a row.
Right. Well, high school is also different than middle school.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't mean to set myself up for ridicule, but I'm just saying, as a concept,
I think we agreed. I think we agreed with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My point is, sometimes we go into at that new situation thinking, I'm going to whip this thing into shape. I'm gonna, as opposed to, let's figure out where we are, and what can we do to be better.
Especially when I was a first year teacher, I thought I was going to go into a program and just really rock and roll, and I kind of felt like I was, because everything was new and fun and fresh. But the truth is, especially when we start off, we're really, really bad. We just are. We all are. Even though we think we're good, we're bad. So
right.
Yeah, it's a misplaced confidence. A little misplaced confidence is powerful. As long as you gain competence later.
You get to teach the level where I don't know this for a fact, but they had to have done more studies about middle school kids and how to reach them or how to properly motivate them than any other age group in the public school system. I don't have any proof of that, but having worked with that age group,
I would too.
Yeah.
They're the ones going through the most changes in their lives hormonally. They are coming out of elementary kids, so they're not quite elementary kids, but they
Mhm.
kind of are. Some of the stuff that
Right.
works for your third grade class also works for sixth grade, and their frontal cortex isn't fully developed, so they don't really understand consequences yet. They just do stuff, and it's like, okay, what's going to happen now?
Well, let me ask you this. I'm curious now that you say that way, because I would think that you are, you know, the people develop slower, faster, different rates.
Mhm.
But especially at this time frame in their life, this is when we start to see, you know, transitioning into teen slash pre-adult, or
Mhm.
we start the very beginning of that. Do you find that you have to present yourself uh, to the middle of the pack and hope that the underdeveloped it sounds terrible to say it that way,
So
but the younger mental people, as opposed to the ones that have already, and a lot of times they do this by gender. I don't want to delve into that too far, but you know, girls kind of develop the thought reasoning process way faster than the boys do, and some of us boys never make it. But
yeah, I'm still working on that too. I read a study that was really depressing. It's like by 42, you're there. I'm like, gosh.
I'm still waiting for my frontal cortex to develop. Too,
I will tell you that my wife asked me. I have two boys in my three kids, and you know there were some trying times.
Mhm.
And my wife Sharona actually, she said, "How old do you think you were when you realized you were kind of growing up?" I said, "I don't know. You tell me. You finished it."
That's right.
So,
Exactly right. I
but
can't believe I had a kid in my 20s. So to answer your your question, how do I teach when there's varying degrees of maturity?
well,
Essentially,
just as
right?
a general concept, do you find that
Yeah.
you have to alter the way you not alter the way you teach, but is there? And I think that you know sometimes the tendency is we speak to the level that we're used to speaking at as adults.
So there's a
So,
fancy teacher word for this, and it's called differentiation. Okay, that's a mouthful. I don't even know if I said it right. Okay, but basically, you teach in a way that reaches as many people as possible by varying the way you say things, the levels at which you're teaching things. Like if I go into my beginner trombone class and I say, "Okay, I want you to play the harmonic series, starting on low B flat up to high B flat. Play every note in the harmonic series." I'll have two people that know what I'm talking about because I said it one time and they remembered it. Okay, but if I say, hey, start on the lowest note in first position. What is that note? B flat. Good. Okay, now let's go to the second highest note. What is that? Oh, that's F. Let's hear it. Okay, what's the highest one that we know so far? High B flat. Okay, now let's try to play those in order. I'll show you. You listen, and then you're going to match. Okay,
okay,
I that catches almost everybody. And even
cool.
if I start with let's play the first three notes in our harmonic series in first position, that will catch two, and then the others will catch the rest.
Yeah.
So it hopefully stimulates everybody to some degree if I move through that fast enough.
Well, even in a more general sense, and Mike, I'm open to what you think too.
Yeah.
But are we kind of finding ourselves stumbling into say this, not that, or a do this, not that
Oh yeah. Well,
mentality?
today we are yeah. Let's talk about today's topic. So today it's all about say this, not that, and uh, basically changing your mentality changes your reality. Okay.
Okay.
And so, what do I mean by that? I'm going to start from philosophy. I promise we're going to get into more practical stuff, but we got to start from philosophy to know how,
Right.
know what we're aiming at. Okay.
Got it.
So, instead of what do I need my students to do? That's a very teacher focused thing. What do I want my students to do? I want them to sit down and shut up and play. I want them to whatever, right? Instead
Right.
of that, think, what do my students need me to do? And more specifically, what do they need me to do in order for them to be successful?
See,
And
I think that tag is probably really important. I'm glad you said that. If we're trying to help them be successful, that kind of tags out that thought. What do I need to do to help them, or what do they need from me to allow them to be successful? Yeah.
right. I actually had this conversation because I've been in this headspace thinking about this podcast. And so I had a student today a beginner, that was just not looking at his music. He kept like zoning out and looking away. And I kept giving him reminders, hey, don't forget to look at your music. And I finally stopped while the other kids were playing and went over to him and said, hey, what do you need from me? In order for you to keep looking at your music and staying focused. And he looked at me and he said, well, I don't need anything. And I said, okay, well, you got to prove that now. And then
Right.
after that, he was on it, but he needed to like process that in a different way. So sometimes what they need from you is just to hear that, oh, I don't need you, I can do it. So
That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
So I have some scenarios that based on no data at all other than Facebook complaints and teacher complaints.
No
And
real
I want to go through
scientific knowledge here.
I want to go through some scenarios and talk through them with you guys and see if we can solve some of the band problems by just refocusing um, the perspective of, okay, what do the students need me to do in order for them to be successful? So
Okay.
here's scenario number one. My students don't practice. Okay.
I
So
think that's a
what do
common thing. Yeah.
yeah. So what do I need? I need my students to practice. Why? Because I want the band to sound good. Why? Because I want my band to sound good when people listen to it and I can feel good. Whatever the reason is, I want the band to sound good. They need to practice. Okay. So let's reverse
Okay.
it. What do my students need from me in order to be successful practicing? Okay. So the number one thing for me is students don't practice because they can't read their music. And so when they go home, nobody shows them how it goes and they can't practice it.
Mhm.
So I heavily, 1 second pause. We have
What does your school need from you?
my school needs me to release our shelter in place drill. There, it's done. No,
Perfect.
I'm covered. Okay. So back on track. So my students need to read music. They need me to teach them to read music. They need support from me. So rhythm is one aspect of that, and pitch is the other aspect. Everything else is just all the little music theory stuff. So I use Darcy Vaught Williams Teaching Rhythms Logically. You can go to her website and you can buy that for $25 and have it forever in PDF. It has instructions on how to teach your students rhythm. And I know we all have our ways of teaching rhythm. I totally get it. But if you're a new teacher or you want, my way's not working, check it out because there's a script that tells you exactly what to do for every single rhythm chart that they have. And it's amazing. And I just give my kids all the rhythm charts right away. We label, we count them as a group and as individuals because people hide. And kids who don't want to stand out, they've learned how to hide in pretty clever ways. So listen to individuals.
They lip sync the rhythm.
Oh man, it's crazy. It's like watermelon, watermelon, watermelon. You know, have you ever heard that when you're trying to
Yeah.
fake
Yeah.
singing in church? Watermelon. Yeah, I don't know the
Watermelon
words.
bunny, rabbit, watermelon bunny,
That's
rabbit.
right. And then sometimes you'll have a class where it sounds like everybody is playing out of the book and the line sounds so good, but there's just a little bit of mud. That little bit of mud is your kids who really aren't reading, that are slightly behind, just looking at other people's slides. So I have some students that need extra note reading exercises. So I print out sheets, I hand it to them, and at the beginning of each class, they do a little warm up and they do just a little bit of extra to recapture those note names. And I just keep track of that. So what I'm saying is music literacy is one reason kids don't practice. Another reason, students don't know how or what to practice. How many times do we say, okay, now go practice that? And that's all we say.
Mhm.
But how,
Right.
but how do we practice that?
Right.
And I've heard Mike say something like, well, I'll show them exactly how I practice. I show them what warm up I do and how I play that warm up. And you can also say, okay, so how do we decide in our music what to practice? And so with my students, I'll say, find the place that trips you up the most when we play our music. And they'll find that place, they'll mark it. I'll say, okay, so now what do we do? How do we practice it? And even today with my beginners, my little brass were playing a tricky little eighth note piece, one of our Christmas pieces. And a student said, Mr. Lowrance, it's the note after the eighth note pairs. I just keep stumbling after the eighth note pairs. I'm like, okay, so let's come up with a way to practice that. So I drew 2 eighth notes and a quarter note on the board and we labeled some letters on those. And I said, let's practice these 3 notes, dot, dot, da, or dot, dot, da, if it changes. And then I said, go back to your music and find your eighth note pairs and just do those 3 note pairs, eighth, quarter. And they said, okay. And they did that. And then we played it again and they could do it. So we got to teach them strategies. We have to be creative. They have to be creative and come up with their own strategies too. So teach them
Okay.
how to practice.
So let me throw a couple of questions, Jesse, now that you said that,
Mhm.
because some of what triggered in me when you said that is
Mhm.
maybe, internally we have but that's not how we've always done that.
Well,
And the thought process that I have with that is, are you still getting or not getting results based on how you've always done that? Maybe it's time to reconsider. But the other thing that I hear, and I'll shut up and let you speak to it,
good.
is that it sounds like more like you're focusing more on individual and their needs for their individual practice and individual success than the blanket everybody we're reading line 59 out of the book and just see how many of them catch it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so there's this heuristic that we all use, and it's overgeneralization of a population. So I hear people complaining all the time. Oh, kids these days just don't get it. Kids these days, they're lazy. Kids, whatever. It's like, no, I don't care about kids these days. I care about Susie. I care about Johnny. I care about whatever. Let me attack them individually, and let's see what they need, because that's the only way to solve anything. If we keep saying, well, this group, or we keep giving a group excuse, this group went through this, and so this group can't handle this.
That was tactful. I appreciate that.
Thank you. See how I insulted and didn't insult everybody all at the same time? Yeah. So I think, approach these situations as like not a situation, but it's a person. That person needs something from me. Okay. Yeah. I think you hit it on the head, Derek.
Yeah,
Okay.
one way to a cool way to approach it is I'll show them how to practice by using the band rehearsal as a practice session. So, and then two things I like to really emphasize to the kids. One is to use a timer, because almost every kid has some sort of timer on their phone or iPad or something. And we'll use a timer because anyone gets distracted. And even to this day, I use a timer when I practice. When I practiced this morning, getting ready for just whatever, with my next performance, I use a timer. So I have exactly 15 minutes of warm up. And then I exactly have 15 minutes where I work on the most difficult parts that have the most markings on them. So if we can get them used to using a timer, it keeps them on task.
Right.
So we use the timer and band for that. The other thing is make sure to show them the proper way of how we're going to sit and the proper environment to practice. So I'll actually set up like in beginner band. I'll get with a kid the day before and say, okay, I'm going to bring like a beanbag chair. And tomorrow we're gonna talk about how to practice. And I want you to come in and sit, instead of getting a band chair, just get that beanbag chair and sit in that, and you're going to play your trumpet from that beanbag chair. And then all of a sudden, all the kids are like, "Why has he got a beanbag chair?" And then we go into the idea of, a lot of kids will sit at home and they'll prop up their music on a pillow and they'll stick their legs across over the bed and they'll have their TV going and they'll have their earbuds in, and then they'll decide they're going to practice their horn. And kids nowadays, they can actually get a lot done multitasking, but if you can convince them to at least get a few of those distractions out of the way and to sit more correct, and maybe, I tried to convince parents to get one of those little portable, foldable music stands for a stocking stuffer or something, just something that they have so they have their music. So just a few thoughts on that. But you're right. I think the main key thing that Jett hit upon, which is gold, is the fact that they don't know how to read music. So they're not going to practice, because I always used it as if a kid ever asked in the class, a student, I should say, a kid, and said, hey, Mr. Lenny, how does this go? That was a problem, because then I'd go, oh, how does this go? I think little Johnny's going to count this for us right now. So we go, little Johnny said, can you count the first measure for me? And not as a like gotcha moment, but then pretty soon they figure out, I probably shouldn't ask, how does this go? Maybe they might paraphrase and go, I'm not sure how this rhythm goes, Mr. Lenny. But to say the words, how does this go, is like, well, let's sit down and let's all count it now. But Jett is right. That's golden, that they will not practice if they can't read the music that they're practicing.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm going to say this too, because I was this kid, even if I didn't, I've told Mike before, so I'll admit it to you now publicly again. I had a very, as a trumpet player, I made really pretty sounds. I did not necessarily count rhythmically with great accuracy the first time through. I was not but if you let me listen to everybody and the director would count it for us, I could pretty well nail it pretty quick, just because that's cheating. I get it. But what I'm saying is, I think that there's more people like me than not that don't necessarily, if you make me break things down and learn it, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So again, I'm going to throw two concepts out. I'll shut up and get out of the way. Ha ha ha. But one of the things that I've heard Mike say before is, when we're teaching them to practice, we have to make sure they're practicing things that they actually need to practice, not their favorite part of the music
Yeah.
because everybody likes to play things that they can already play.
I do. I'm 62, and I did that this morning. I still played 76 trombones for my marching band director's band. And I was going, I've got that memorized frontwards and backwards. Why am I practicing that? Why?
But in the thought
Feels good.
process of individual help,
Yeah.
how do you do that in classroom, Mr. Lawrence? How do you say, okay, I know that you need to work here and you need more work on this? Are you going around the room? I've heard you talk about how you basically walk the room if you have a set practice time and help individuals in that setting as opposed to singling them out in front of everybody else.
Yeah, so I have my kids practice. We do practice sessions, basically. But I don't tell them it's that, but it's what it is. I set them in groups, or I set them go off and work on what you need to. I have a list of objectives I need to pass off, and then I go around and I listen to them and I help guide their practice. And I do that for every individual. If the class has 5, if the class has 25, I go around and I do that while they're all playing. And typically they're pretty good at staying busy because they can look in front of them and go, "Oh, I see what I'm supposed to be doing," and they've been trained to stay on task. So,
and Jett, isn't it amazing how they're able to weed out the other sounds in the room?
Yeah, it is amazing.
Because I don't know if I could do that, but the kids can do that. They can.
I'm not that mosaic.
Yeah, it's like it would drive me absolutely crazy. But I think it's a great way of. I've never done it the way Jett just described, but I think that's an amazing way. I just did it as full ensemble, and then I'd tell them, said, now everyone loves to play this certain line in the book, and then so we're going to practice this line that's really difficult for a while, and we set the timer, and then at the end of the class period, we go, okay, now we can do our fun line. How many of you like line 46? And if like 80% of the hands go up, we go, okay, we're doing line 46 because that's something fun. We know we can all do it. But I really love the idea of the individual practice. That's just really cool.
Well, and whatever line they're on in the book, I'm talking beginners right now, whatever line they are on the book is the hardest line that they've ever played. Typically, there's some exceptions.
By design, right.
By design. It's not perfect, no method book is perfectly sequenced, but if their objective sheet, this student's on line 25 and this other student is on line 47, they're both tackling something that is challenging and the thing they need to work on. Nobody is going back to line 27 after passing it off and working on it. So they kind of instinctually, they kind of wire their brains to know, oh, I need to be working on the next hardest thing and not going back to the easy stuff.
Yeah, so
kind of all under the literacy umbrella. Making sure that they can read, making sure that they are actually equipped to practice before you just tell them to go practice.
Yeah. And one of the hardest concepts for younger teachers is to realize that, and I've seen studies on this, I don't know how accurate it is, but they say 80% of what you learn about music happens in the first year. So I've seen directors, and this is just a gentle warning to some directors out there, that if it's a one-person show, they're one director at a 1A school, they'll tend to ignore their beginners because there's so much to do, but they can't do that. You've got to make sure they know how to practice because that'll pay you huge dividends in the long run. It's kind of easy to ignore them. Just like play through the lines, whatever. Here we go. Now let's work with the real band now. The real band comes in third period.
Let me add some legitimacy to what you're saying, I think, Jett, because you have spent time in smaller classification, and now you're at a middle school in a larger classification. Same kids.
To clarify, smaller classification, there were maybe 85 total 7th and 8th graders in the whole school, and now at the school I'm at, there's about 600 in the whole school. So, yeah.
But the same concepts work both places?
The things I do at Clack Middle School in Abilene, Texas at a 2C that feeds a 5A are the same things I did at Eastland, which is a 3A, or a little 1C feeding into a 3A. Same concepts because it's based on the individual student. The pacing
I think that's great to say. I want everybody to hear that. Don't limit your kids based on what you perceive the level or the size of the school.
Yeah, I have a kid who's nearly like a beginner trumpet player. Shout out beginner trumpets. I know it's a little late in the podcast. You're probably not listening to it, but shout out. I missed your class the other day and said I shout you out. So here it is. You guys are awesome. But I have a beginner trumpet that is, he is 3/4 through their method book because the gates are open. Go play. play through as many of your objectives as you can. And here's a new one. Here's a new page. Here's a new page. And then I have some that just got finished with their first objective page, and they are so excited. They're like, I finally did it. I beat this stupid line 14 or whatever,
Right.
And they all sound good. All have good fundamentals. As long as you're reviewing those fundamentals every day, that literacy part, they can do that at their own pace as long as you're keeping tabs of it. And,
Cool.
yeah.
Well, I feel like I kind of rabbit hole this, but a rabbit trail, whichever way. But back to the concept of how we help them become successful. What do they need from us?
What they need from us. Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, they needed guidance when it came to practicing, and I think we talked about that a whole lot, right?
Yep.
So some other things they may need. I get this a lot. I'm trying to think which scenario. I have a whole bunch written down. Let's say my students won't shut up during class.
I bet that's a common one. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, especially on the middle school Facebook pages. There's people who are like, I just don't know what's wrong with these kids.
It's
Kids
their
these days
fault.
just
Yeah.
can't shut up. And okay, so first of all, the truth of the matter is everything that goes wrong in rehearsal, I'll say almost. Okay.
No, you were correct the first time.
Well,
Jett.
okay. It's your fault.
Everything that happens incorrect is the band director's
It's your
fault.
fault. If things are going right, it's also your fault. Congratulations.
Yeah.
But if they're
Okay.
going
Don't
bad,
tune out. Don't tune out,
fault.
directors. We're gonna
Yeah.
circle back.
I know. Okay, so
It's the
Tough
truth.
love.
It's the
Tough
truth.
love.
So the kids won't shut up. What do I need them to do? I need them to shut up so I can teach. And why do I need to teach? So my band will sound all the things, right? What do my students need? My students are talking all the time and at inappropriate times to talk. So what do they need? What sounds like they need to talk. It sounds like they need permission to talk,
Mhm.
but I can't give them permission all the time. So I should probably select when they have permission to talk to show them the difference between when it's okay and when it's not. So what about when we transition that I allow them and I tell them, as you transition, go to voice level 1, and I can go over voice levels in a second. Voice level 1, and just talk to the people around you while you transition. And then they do that. And then when it's time to play again, they're like, I had that mental break, I had that brain break, and now I'm ready to go. And it takes some training because at first they're talking and you gotta get them to shut up. So
Yeah, you got to corral them again.
yeah, but once they get used to, okay, I'm on the podium, my hands come up, and they go, then it's fine. So you do have to do some training, but give them that talk time. Give them those brain breaks.
Yeah, I want to jump in on that one because I did a all city band up in Wichita Falls, and it's most of the band was seventh graders.
Hmm.
They were mostly seventh graders, and we had 6 hours of rehearsal that day. It would have been that's impossible to tell kids. It's impossible to tell adults that you
Here
will
to
not
say,
you will not
don't hold
talk.
kids on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you will not talk. And so it's just like Jett said, anytime I just made the rule and a rule. Yeah, here I laid down the hammer. But no, I told them, I said, when I step off the podium, said you're free to talk at whatever volume you want to talk.
Mhm.
And so they could do that. Then when I got back on the podium, I always said, when I stand back on the podium, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to raise my hand really high. Then I need everyone in the ensemble to raise their hand really high where their elbow's against their ear, the inside of their elbow. And that way, you'd be surprised how quickly they get quiet when you stand on the podium and you raise your hand really high instead of going, hey, be quiet, shh, 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 be quiet, shh, 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 shushing them and all that. Just raise your hand and they all look at you and they raise their hand, and with that, they had time to do it. The other caveat is this. There's a difference, and I explained it to them, and I explained to all my beginners and my high schoolers that there's a difference in the conversation and making a statement. If Jett and I are sitting next to each other, which would be a problem in rehearsal because we both like to talk, so it's we would end up talking. But if I just lean over and go, hey man, make sure that's an A natural, Jett. That's one thing, but to go, hey Jett, after rehearsal, are you going to Sonic? Because I really like their cherry limeades, and the cherry limeades are on sale right now, so it's kind of happy hour at Sonic. So and all of a sudden you're having this conversation, and so I kind of look at it as there's times for good noise and times for bad noise.
Mhm.
And if the kids understand that, even sixth graders can understand that. So I just want to leave it at that.
Yeah. So that's like one little thing. Okay. I think my students won't shut up during rehearsal or they won't listen to me or whatever. We'd actually need to unpack this quite a bit because it could also mean your students don't like you. Okay. And why is it they don't like you? Because you're constantly telling them to stop talking. And that's your whole interaction is play good for me and stop talking.
Yeah.
That's the whole relationship.
You're a DPS officer.
Yeah,
You're a
exactly.
police officer.
And that can't be the relationship. So, okay, time to unpack all that. So first off, maybe they don't like you also because they don't know you. So before class, I do my best, and some days I'm busy, but I try to get out that hallway and I try to greet every student. And we all learn this in college now, okay? But greet every single student and try to have a positive interaction with them as they come in, high five, fist bump. If you know they had a football game the previous day, hey, great. I heard you scored a touchdown at the game. Awesome, high five. That kind of stuff goes a long, 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 long way, okay? And then when you're on the podium, talk to them about your day, talk to them about yourself, talk to them about something that's going on in your life. During rehearsal, take a break and tell them that, hey man, I'm really proud of the way you guys are doing today. I know that I was making some corrections earlier, but I want you to know that you sound great. Thank you for making those adjustments. Show your appreciation. And so that's on kind of mass, I think. And let's say though that you have 2 trombone players that won't be quiet. Okay. Think about your relationship with those students. Do I know those students very well, and do they know me very well? Specifically, those 2 students. What do I know about them? Okay. How many times do I have a positive interaction with those 2 students each week? So there's a strategy, and this is called a tier. Here we go. This is called a tier 2 intervention. All right. So there's tier 1.
Sounds serious.
I know we're getting
DEFCON 1.
So tier 1 discipline problems are like they talk out of turn, they get out of their seat occasionally. It's all the little bitty stuff. Tier 2 is when things are a little more serious, or they've repeated a tier 1 so often that it's become a real problem. Okay, so that's tier 2. So this is a tier 2 intervention. This is called the 10-2 method. Okay, that means for 10 days in a row, you need to have a 2-minute conversation, a positive interaction with those students each day for 10 days. And it takes about 10 days to actually make a big change with an individual. Okay. I was going to go into something else. I don't want to get into the weeds on more of that stuff, but so 10 and 2. And if you do that, I think you'll find that when you give those students that look, that they'll go, oh, Mr. Lawrence wants me to be quiet. I'll be quiet, and not that jerk wants me to be quiet again. I don't want to do what they have to say. It just changes the whole dynamic. All of a sudden, you're not uncomfortable on the podium. How many times as a teacher have we been uncomfortable on the podium because we're like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how they're going to act. I don't know how they're going to respond. But if you know them and they know you, it's cool. It's like,
Right.
oh, Johnny, like talk to him after class. Hey, man, you're talking a lot today. Everything okay, man? Usually you don't do that. Or, you have some ground to stand on. You're not just complaining to them.
Relationship, right?
And Jett and Derek, there's 2 things I see directors do, and they mention this on blogs all the time, which I think is very detrimental to the culture of a band. One is they'll say, just have them play all the time. Just have them play all the time. I see that all the time. That's their answer to get the kids to be quiet. And what that relates to is there's no teaching going on.
Right.
Okay. So that's one of them. So don't do that. The other one is I see teachers say, well, if someone's talking, go back and make them do the warm-ups again. Punish them by making them do the fundamentals again. So they start to correlate fundamentals equal punishment.
Right.
And so both of those are very detrimental. Now, I'm not saying they're not going to work. They will work. The kids will shut up, but you'll have a band that shuts up that can't play their horns correctly. And I'd almost rather have a talkative band that could play well.
Yeah. Okay. So I have, I don't know. Do you want to go through a couple more scenarios?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do another scenario. Okay. So my students, well, let's see. Do I want to do that one? Yeah, let's do that one. My students are not prepared for playing tests. And I think that we've already touched a little bit on this one, so we can do this one pretty quick. Okay. So my students aren't prepared for a playing test. Well, my question to you first is, why are you giving playing tests? That's question number 1.
Yeah. What's the rationale?
Is your point, so I am required to put a grade in the grade book, so I'm doing a playing test, or I want to hear how they're doing, so I'm giving a playing test? Well, first off, don't you hear them every day? Don't you hear individuals every day? And then playing tests for me, and chair tests specifically for middle school. Okay. I don't like chair tests for middle school. So if it's to rank your kids, I don't think that works. I think your first 2 chairs get a superiority complex and become very good players, but with a bad trickle down culture. And not always. First off, not always. You can do it.
Right.
You can do it in a healthy way, but that happens I think, on the average. And then your last year players stop trying.
Yes.
Why even play trumpet or whatever? Because I
And
will
there's
never
so
be
much
there.
crying,
So much crying.
so much crying, and so many horns. My horn's broken, Mr. Lenny.
So yeah, exactly. And introducing a little bit of stress into a kid's life when it's safe is good, but that doesn't seem like the right one to do.
Yeah, but
So
let me ask
we-
you this, Mike. I've heard you say this before. Everybody knows who the 3 or 4 best players are. Everybody knows who the 3 or 4 not so great players are, and then there's a whole cluster in the middle. You don't have to accentuate that with a individual playing test in front of everybody.
Yeah, especially don't do it in class.
do you want, as a director, to have someone judge you and 10 other directors on how your directing is and then line you up?
Oh, that's a great example.
That's
Whether it's
fantastic.
conducting, whatever, okay? Do you think if you're in that 9th or 10th spot, you're going to go, I need to quit. This is over
Right.
for me. I'm not good at this.
Then have the other 9 just roll their eyes at you and
Yeah.
distract
Snicker
you
behind a
and
clenched
snicker
hand.
behind your back. And yeah, that would be an awesome experiment.
Yeah. So if you don't like it, they don't either. So how do we learn? How do we develop? We have mentors that teach us, or we observe people teaching, but we don't usually do it in front of a whole
Mhm.
class unless it's a special situation. Even then, there's no ranking involved. Okay. So what I do instead of testing like that is I've already mentioned it, but I do my objective pages, and every kid is wherever they're at is what they're working on. So beginners, lines in the book, just whatever your next line is. For my 7th and 8th graders, my objectives can include counting off some rhythms from a rhythm chart, until they get it right. And then once they get it right, they move on to the next one, playing off their scales of 1 octave. Okay, now let's try it 2 octaves. Let's try whatever, and until they get it. But I'm not going to sit there and say, well, Tim, you're a 7th grader who can't play your 2 octave concert B flat scale, and so therefore you're not very good, and you should feel really bad. Go sit in the dunce chair.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. But we are going to celebrate the kid who comes in and plays off their objective and plays it off 2 octaves and go, man, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Way to go. And everybody can sit there and go, that was awesome. So that kid gets the recognition of that was awesome, but they don't necessarily feel like I'm the best and everybody needs to bow before me. Okay. In fact, I do a lot of pairing where I pair kids who, you got to be careful how you pair kids. Pair middle to bottom and top to middle, not top to bottom. If you pair, when by that I mean, don't put your best kid paired with your worst kid and say, here, help this kid. Don't do that. This top kid will get frustrated. Okay. Instead, pair them middle to bottom because the gap is closer and the middle can still help that bottom kid. So, but if you start pairing kids and get them to help each other, you'll develop a more cooperative environment instead of I'm the best and I'm just going to keep doing that and you stay over there.
But I think I've even heard you talk about the concept of sectionals, student-led sectionals. Is that
Okay, so this, I think, teaching students to lead a sectional, okay, and as early as 6th grade solves so many problems, okay? It trains them in so many powerful ways. So let me talk through my process and then I'll tell you why I
Cool.
think it works. So first off, I assign leadership. Well, actually, I don't. They do. I say, here's my positions. There's a facilitator who's in charge of keeping everybody on task, and I train them how they do that. Okay, I don't have to get in the weeds now, but I do that. And then there's a director. The director counts off and starts them, and they have the final say in what measure they are starting on. If you don't give that role, they'll argue for 5 minutes about where to start.
where to start?
They really will. It's crazy. I had to learn that the hard way. And then there's somebody who is the task organizer, and they have the piece of paper that has the agenda. Whether they make it or I make it, they have that paper. And if for some reason they're like, okay, I think we're good here, let's move on to the next thing, that person goes, oh, that's my job. Okay, we're going to Joy, and we're going to start on measure whatever. That's what we're doing. So those are my 3 roles. Everybody else is just a group member, and they have a role too. Their role is to raise their hand when they have a question, add to discussion, and give input on towards the places they want to play, the trouble spots.
Right.
And so I train them on positions, and then I carefully monitor as they sit in groups and work through their tasks. And I give lots of constant feedback on the way they talk to each other, but in a nice way where I'm not going to embarrass anybody about it. Like, don't tell him that, I'll make sure I do it subtle. And So anyway, they do their sectional, they play through their sectional. And what I find is the day after they do a sectional, they have an amazing rehearsal. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Reason number one, they have set in groups and they've worked together to make their music better. But the biggest reason is directing is hard, facilitating is hard, keeping people on task is hard. And there are three different people doing that job. Guess who does that job on the daily? Their actual band director. Okay.
Right.
And so they have a bigger appreciation for what that person on the podium is doing. They're like, okay, I'm going to pay attention. Right. And if you can get somebody in those sectionals that maybe they talk a little bit during class, give them one of those jobs. Okay. They'll take it serious. You'll be surprised. And they'll be a lot better for you in class too. Just a side hint. Um, I had one more thought if I can get my brain back on the train. So, oh, and your students interact with you more after you do sectionals. Like they're more open to having discussions with you from the podium. So you'll ask a question and they'll say, "Yeah, Mr. Lawrence, I actually think we should decrescendo on that whole note in measure 5." And I'm like, why? It's like, well, it's the end of the phrase. And they'll start to say all these musical things. You'll go, I didn't know you could do that. It's like, yeah, we discussed this in our sectional. It's like, cool. Or, Mr. Lawrence, I don't think we're all articulating the same way in measure 3. And no, this isn't top band kids, okay? No offense to if you're not a top band kid, no offense, okay? But this is kids in non-varsity band, beginner band. They can do these things, as long as you teach them to do it, they can do it.
Right. But we're back to your initial point. Essentially, they're literate in this discussion now,
100%.
as opposed to I might have had a question, but I have no idea how to ask it, and I don't want to embarrass myself.
Yep, exactly right. So that's a good way of putting it. Not just notes and rhythm literacy, but just conceptual literacy. That's interesting.
And they do become empathetic to the director's plight. My high school director would have us. Happened to be first chair at the time, and so the first chair players taught the sectionals. And I remember going to him and going, I don't see how you do this for a living.
Right.
What are you thinking?
And I ended up becoming a band director. You know what I mean? But I said, well, this is crazy. He said, I can't, get same things as a first year teacher. I can't get them to be quiet. They won't listen to what I'm doing. They won't do this. And he goes, just do this. And he told me the things to do, and it worked. And I developed as a teacher, not just as a player, but it does make you it makes the kids more empathetic for the director. And that's not what we're trying to look for people to feel sorry for us, but they understand we all have a position in a place.
If you want to be humbled, watch a student make the same mistakes you did when you got in front of a band for the first time.
Yes.
It's the exact same thing.
Except they're a 7th grader.
I know. And the mistakes
got a college degree.
The mistakes are kind of the same. They're a little too bossy. They're just trying to tell them what to do instead of saying, what should we do? What do you think we should do? That's kind of the big one. They just try to be bossy, and nobody likes a bossy person. So,
but I also think it creates ownership. It creates us. It creates, we get it. We're here to help. You know what I mean? You've got more people pulling the rope with you as opposed to being pulled.
Yes. So it's hard to give over the reins because a lot of directors think this is my band. Okay. A lot of people think this is my thing. But students have to be convinced that not only is it my band, it is my band, but it's not just my band. It's your band. Okay. It's the people who come after you. It's their band. The people that came before you, it's their band. And right now it's our band. Okay. So now we have to take care of this thing together, make this thing special together as a group.
And Jett, there's something I've seen you do with your band that if you have time, I want you to go through it with us. Your beginner band training phrases and voice levels.
Okay. Yeah. Let me do that.
Those are really useful because I've seen him do this. And it was like, my mind was blown after 31 years of teaching. I was like, oh my gosh.
So I'm always learning new stuff. And I've always given signals for my band. Like I used to have a fist up in the air. That means, hey, go to voice level 0. And so let me talk about voice levels real quick. Voice level 0, silence. Okay. Voice level 1, it's a whisper that only your neighbor can barely hear. Voice level 2, a conversation between you and your neighbor. So you're about like this. Voice level number 3 is like you're giving a presentation. Okay. You're in front of the room. You want to make sure that's like the director on the podium. I'm presenting to the class. If we all talk in a presenter's voice, it will be so loud. And then voice level 4 is the outside voice. Okay. If you've been in the middle school and you walk through a hallway, you'll hear level 4 out of nowhere. You'll be like, what the heck, man? We're inside. Like, chill out. And so I've now I've adapted just making a 0 with my hand like this for voice level 0, 1, to, and I don't go to 3. There's no reason to go to 3. And so I think the biggest thing is teach your students what your expectations are and have a nonverbal signal, because that saves time, and it also saves some embarrassment. It says saying, "Hey, Johnny, you need to be quiet." You just look at Johnny and just look at him and just do that and kind of smile, nod, and they'll nod back and they'll go, "I got it." And you move on. Some I stole from my current coworker, Mrs. Gonzalez. These are great. And I use them all the time. So how many times does a student take their stand and like wiggle it around or lean on it and all that kind of stuff? Happens all the time. Or they put their water bottle on it.
Or kick at it.
Exactly. So the saying is, stands are for music only. That's it. Very simple, right? Straightforward. The signal, if I can do it, my camera's mirrored, so it's really confusing me, is stands are for music only. And you make that simple. So if I see somebody playing with their stand, I just look at them and go,
just draw a square.
Just draw a square to make a music stand, and they get it. Some other ones, and then, again, I stole these from Mrs. Gonzalez. I don't know where she got them from. If she made them up, they're amazing. So this, okay, everything is expensive. So
yeah, for our audio people, he's given a Johnny Manziel money.
So I should tell you what I'm doing. I forgot.
Rubbing your fingers.
So yeah, show me the money, right?
Yeah, show me the money.
And so if somebody's playing on the percussion equipment, you don't have to say, "Hey, you're not supposed, you're a flute player playing on percussion equipment." You just look at them and you do that. Everything's expensive, and they go, "Oh, I get it." Neat shortcut. Let's see if there's another one. Oh, the students should not be touching each other. That should be duh, right? Not kicking each other's feet, not poking each other, nothing. So we have a keep hands, feet, and objects to yourselves, and that's just crossing our arms around our shoulders, okay, in front of us. And so you look at a student who's horse playing a little bit, and you just give them that signal, and they typically stop.
Yeah.
So,
and I've seen that in action. It was really cool to watch.
Yeah. And then the last one that I'll talk about, there's a few more, but they're not always applicable. But we make a drinking motion like we're taking a drink of a water bottle, and that's water only. If we see a student that's chewing gum, we just show them the water only signal, or eating candy or whatever horrible substance they brought into the band hall. Okay, illegal substance,
contraband,
cigars, whatever.
Yeah, it's like chewing gum is like the worst thing you can do. I always tell them chewing gum isn't bad. It's just you can't do it in here. Nothing wrong with chewing gum. So yeah, just do the water only signal, and they get the idea, and they spit out their gum. And that's just for efficiency, and it's just showing kindness too. You're not just trying to make a big deal of it.
To give Pearl and Jett some credit on this too, I've noticed it makes the kids watch them more. Because if you're always just yelling at the kids, they quit looking at you because they're just using their ears. But if you're using all these signals, the kids are constantly, I'll watch them. They're like baseball players looking for the pitcher's signal. You know what I mean? They're constantly looking for the signals. So it's a really cool system.
Yep.
All right. Yep. I'm triggered on a question here, all the way back into our voice levels. Do you two gentlemen, if you know, and I've heard Mike talk about this, sometimes it bores the rest of the band if I have to stop and work with the flutes, or if I have to work a specific section and everybody else is sitting. Middle school kids aren't going to sit there. Listen, I'm not trying to talk bad about them, but I couldn't sit there quietly for any amount of time if it's only a flute line that's getting worked on. Do you allow a voice level one from the other sections if you're specific? Because our directors used to say this: you need to pay attention because this might show up in your music.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I like that. I like that statement, and I give those statements, but they're also middle schoolers. Okay, so when I'm working with my let's say the flute section is a great example because they're at the front, and I'm down here with the flute, so everybody else is like, oh, he's gone now. All right, first off, I do it fast, and if I can't get it done in like 10 seconds, I move on. I make a mental note or write it down, and I turn it into a sectional, or I say, hey, next student sectional, we need to work on that section. Okay, I'm not going to sit there and do it all day.
I think that's the key to it, is the amount of time you utilize. If I'm working my top wind ensemble in a 4A, 5A high school band, you can sit there and work them for a minute or 2 minutes, and that's about it. Middle schoolers, maybe 20 seconds. And the only way around that I found is like a band hack is if they're counting a rhythm, then turn to the trombone and say, hey, count that rhythm for me. And then all of a sudden they kind of look at you, say, "Flutes, count that again. Now just listen to it and count it." And then you
Yep.
try to get other people involved. But Jett is right on the money. He said, you can't really do that for more than 15 seconds with middle schoolers.
Yeah, specifically
It-
middle school. I
yeah.
mean, you did this.
They just, their attention span is just their attention span. It's what it is.
That's
Yeah.
right. And yeah, I think giving other people things to do and think about, that's great. Sometimes I can do it. Just me being honest. Sometimes I can think of it and say, oh, while they're doing that, y'all work on this or finger through this. But sometimes I don't. And I'm just flying and stealth teaching and you know what I mean? Just diving in and diving out.
Yeah, and I think one thing to do too, that it's worked for me, and it worked last weekend with this little middle school all city band, is when I had to work with one section for a little bit. Then if the rest of the band did behave, then when we went back to full, so okay, everybody full band, I'll always say something like, everybody back in the pool. You know what I mean? Everybody, we're all back in.
That's
and
cute.
I'll
I
always
like that.
tell them, I'll say, thank you guys for being so mature and being still while I work that out with the French horns. There's something about a little tiny compliment that every dog wants a little more ear scratch.
Man, if I get a
You know what I mean? So every band wants to be told they're good at something.
if I get a compliment, I bank that for like a year. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Like
Mark Twain said he can live for a month off a compliment.
Oh yeah.
That's a Mark Twain quote. I can live for a month off a good compliment.
Man.
So just tell them if they did a really good job of being mature. Just man, you guys were so mature and still. I so appreciate that. I was able to work that out in the French horn section. Everybody back in the pool. Here we go. Let's go. Everybody let her.
And here's even some more brain ninja stuff. Let's say that most of them were, but some of them weren't. If you can like pinpoint a couple of sections, go, man, tubas, thank you for being really quiet while the flutes were doing that. That made that so much easier. And then just move on. And everybody else will go, oh, whoops, I don't think I was were you being quiet? Okay, I need to think about that next time.
And the next time the trumpets, if it was the trumpets, because it usually is, they do it poorly, they'll start to self-police themselves. They'll lean over and go, yeah, because they want the compliment.
Yep, exactly.
You know?
Right. Yep,
It works. I love that band brain ninja technique.
Well, I'm
These are
gonna
not the students you're looking for. Yeah.
kind of start getting us ready for a descent. But one of the people that I have come to respect a lot is Stephen, who made
I'm kidding.
You know, Stephen, yeah, there's a lot of Stevens out there, Garrett.
I know. He'll know. And you'll know.
Yeah.
But the comment was the students are the product.
100% right.
And so a lot of our stuff, if we filter it through the concept is this making a great student as opposed to is this making me a great band director?
Yeah.
And just remembering that at the end of the day, we all go through some form of adjudication if we're still in this business or evaluation. But is the student what I'm most focused on?
Yeah.
Is that the product I'm creating as opposed to you guys have to do this right because everybody's going to look at me and say about me as opposed to about us and the students?
Now, I used to be really sarcastic with my band. My last pep talk before the curtain opened would be I'd lean over and I'd go, hey, kids, they're about to announce my name. Don't screw up. And then we'd all just smile and the curtain would open and we'd play. But, you know, it's that idea. If your kids, if you teach them how to be good kids, you will at least have a really good band, if not a great band. If you never have great kids, you will never even have a good band.
Listen, I'll take a good band with great kids any day.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Just someplace I'm happy to go and work. I mean, right now I'm my main ensemble is a non-varsity middle school band, and it's really that is you are teaching every day, man. I mean, it's like you're in the trenches, and I'm so proud of the way my students conduct themselves in my class. I'm proud of the way they talk to each other. I'm proud of the way they've strayed away from using. They know, don't use sarcasm. Don't say anything. I was just joking. No, we don't. It doesn't matter if you're just joking. I don't care. So yeah, if we can develop great people, then we've won as far as band culture goes.
Yeah.
The music will kind of take care of itself. You know,
it will. The music's not really that hard.
That's super true compared to the other stuff.
Compared to the other stuff, the music's not hard
but
at all.
Once again, we're back to our main thought process of what do I need? What do they need from me?
Exactly. What do
they need me to encourage positive character growth
and to be a good example?
Right. That's the other thing, man. If you're sitting on the podium yelling at kids all the time, guess what they're going to do to each other? I mean, come on. They look up to you, whether you know it or not. They look up to you.
Right. Okay. Awesome. You got anything you want to get in there before we go away, Mr. Lowrance?
I don't know. I something fun. I have a little sign off. Okay, a little podcast sign off. I have a question for Ask Mike. The Ask Mike. Okay, so Mike, you are. I've heard you're a fan of the Skyriders.
I am a fan of the Skyriders.
Yeah, you have maybe a history with them or something. Maybe you've talked about that on the podcast before.
Probably too much.
Yeah, and I haven't listened to every single Ask Mike.
It's like a guy that owns a motorcycle always talks about their motorcycle.
Yeah. So I'll give Derek a chance to answer too, to see if he pays attention to Skyriders too. Okay. So here's my question. The Skyriders claim to have used the only DCI group to have used a certain thing in their shows that would be very against UIL marching rules today or ever. Do you know what that thing could be?
I do know what that thing is. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Birds can't fly in DCI. That was our t-shirts the next year. Birds can't fly in DCI. There's a rule in DCI that live animals may not be used in a presentation.
And whose fault is that?
The Skyriders Drum and Bugle Corps. And I want to brag on them because you brought it up, but DCI gave us our own show this year. On July 14th, Madison Scouts, the Blue Stars, the Troopers, plus our little sound sport group. We're having a show in Hutchinson, Kansas on the 14th of July. So that's a big boost for us. And we're going all the way down to San Antonio. So if you Texas directors, if you want to see the Skyriders in their first regional competition, it'll be July 18th in the Alamo Dome.
Well, that's awesome.
Way cool.
Yeah,
way cool.
It'll be cool. But no pigeons will be involved.
No pigeons were harmed in the production of this year's show.
They actually were at the time, but we won't go into that. It was like 150 degrees, and they all came out, and they just kind of fell over on the turf, and they were all picking them up and sticking them back in the deal. And it was horrendous. I mean, PETA would have killed us.
Do you think if it went well, and it was beautiful, that we'd have animals and
yeah, we'd be bringing tigers and zebras and elephants. Yeah.
That's awesome. Mr. Lowrance, thank you for your time. We appreciate you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Jett.
Yeah, it's fun.
As always, Mr. Lunny, I appreciate you, the propagator of the gospel of music education. And let's all get together and do it again soon, won't you?
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys.